Welcome to our Explainer. Today, we're diving into a topic that's, well, it's pretty complicated. The whole financial side of things when a marriage ends under Indian law. We're talking about alimony and maintenance, but don't worry, we're going to break it all down and make it make sense.
So, let's just jump right in. When a couple separates, things can get messy fast, and maybe the biggest question of all is, who pays for what? Well, Indian law actually has a pretty structured answer, and it's all built around two key concepts: alimony and maintenance.
Here's how we're going to tackle this. First up, what do these words even mean? Then we'll look at the support you can get during a case, and then what happens after it's all finalized. We'll definitely get into how the amount is decided. That's the big one, right? And finally, when do the payments actually stop?
Okay, Section 1. First things first, let's build the foundation. What are we really talking about when we use legal terms like alimony and maintenance?
So this idea of alimony, it actually has its roots in English law. At its core, it's pretty simple. It's an allowance that the law requires one spouse to pay to the other for their support. And that's the key phrase here, required by law. This isn't a favor, it's a legal provision.
And that really gets to the heart of it. The law basically says that because of the marriage itself, there's a legal duty to financially support a spouse who is dependent on the other. It's not a choice, it's a full-blown legal obligation.
Okay, so let's get into the nitty-gritty. There are different kinds of support, and the first one we need to talk about is the immediate kind, the support that kicks in while all the legal proceedings are still going on.
You can think of this as financial first aid. The legal term is interim maintenance, or, if you want to sound fancy, alimony pendente light. And its whole purpose is to give immediate relief, covering essentials like living expenses and even the costs of the court case itself.
And this comparison lays it out perfectly. Interim maintenance is the temporary fix, It's a bridge to get a spouse through the court case. Permanent maintenance, which we'll get to in a minute, is the long-term solution that comes after the final decision.
Now, check this out, because this is where you can actually see the law evolving over time. The older acts, like the one from 1869, said only the wife could claim this support. But fast forward to more modern laws, like the Hindu Marriage Act, and suddenly it's gender neutral. Now, either the husband or the wife can make a claim if they're the dependent spouse. That's a huge shift.
All right, we've talked about the temporary stuff, so let's move on to the long-term plan. Permanent maintenance. This is the financial support that a court can order once a final decree, a final decision, has been made.
So, with this long-term arrangement, there are a couple of ways it can go. It might be a one-time lump sum payment, or more often, it's periodic payments, like monthly. And here's a really important point. To guarantee the payments happen, a court can actually place a charge on the paying person's property. It acts as a form of security.
Okay, this brings us to the question I'm sure is on everybody's mind. How on earth do courts decide how much to award? How do they land on a fair number?
So is there some kind of magic formula? A simple calculation you can just plug numbers into? Well, for a very long time there kinda was. At least a very strict rule of thumb. Yup, 1/5. The old Divorce Act from way back in 1869 had this very specific cap. It said that interim alimony couldn't be more than 1/5 of the husband's average net income. It was incredibly simple, but also very rigid. But as society changed, the courts started to push back. They started to ask, wait a second, does this 1/5 rule even make sense anymore? This quote from Justice Deshpande is pretty powerful. He essentially called the rule irrational and totally out of sync with the principle of equality. That was a huge turning point in legal thinking. So today, that magic formula is gone. Instead, judges use what's called judicial discretion. This means they look at everything, the whole picture, the income of both people, what they own, what their needs are, the lifestyle they were used to, even their age and health. It's a much more holistic and, frankly, fair way of doing things.
But if you had to boil it all down to one single question, this would be it. The number one test is, does the person asking for maintenance have enough independent income to support themselves? That is the core of it. And courts have been very clear that just being capable of earning money isn't the same as actually having enough money to live on.
All right, so once a maintenance order is in place, is that it forever? A life sentence? Not exactly. Let's get into our final section and look at the specific reasons why these payments might be changed or even stopped altogether.
Broadly speaking, it comes down to three main triggers, three major life events that can cause a court to go back and review a permanent maintenance order. First, a major change in finances. If the person paying loses their job or the person receiving gets a huge promotion, the order can be modified. Second, and this one is pretty straightforward, remarriage. If the person receiving maintenance gets remarried, the court can cancel the order. Third is a bit, well, old-fashioned. It's about chastity. Some laws state that if it's proven the person receiving payments is not living a chaste life, the order can be rescinded. And finally, of course, the payments automatically stop when the person receiving them passes away.
And all of this leaves us with a final, really important question to think about. Society is evolving. The financial roles in a marriage are more fluid than ever. So the law has this constant, tricky balancing act to perform. How do you provide a crucial safety net for a dependent spouse while also encouraging their own financial independence? It's a tough balance to strike, and one the courts will continue to navigate for years to come.